I'm Dr. Ramesh Thangavel from AIMLAstrology.in. Thank you for taking time to watch this video today. In 2023, I have started an initiative to teach mathematical astrology through Excel software for the beginners as well as professional astrologers through this YouTube channel. Cordially welcome you all for these sessions. Indian astrology consists of two parts, the mathematical as well as the predictions part. The mathematical astrology is pretty much consistent across regions as well as languages. When it comes to the predictions part of the astrology, there is quite a bit of variability in terms of the methods, actual predictions, as well as the interpretations of different planetary combinations. Since the prediction part is very variable, I will not be touching upon that part in this learning exercise. In this series, I am planning to teach you the very basics of mathematical astrology and also provide a quick overview of the astrological construct and its usage in the larger astrological framework. Both of our times are very precious. Since this is going to be a long exercise consisting of multiple lessons, I want to make sure you are the correct audience for this lesson. If you are a beginner in astrology, trying to learn it in a systematic way, so this lesson series will be very helpful for you. If you're a professional astrologer or someone already documenting all the predictions you are making for your customers, then this lesson will help you to put together your custom rules in action and help you with predictions part. Finally, if you are a beginner with Excel and want to learn MS Excel through the astrological concepts, then this session should be very helpful for you. There are certain prerequisites for this learning. This is going to be pretty much a hands-on exercise, and you are expected to do it yourself after watching the video. Since the subject is very vast, we won't be able to cover everything in the short video series. So you may be required to go through additional learning and research at your end. We would not be having bandwidth to review any of the work products that you are creating after watching the video. And we also expect you to have certain level of basic MS Excel expertise to get started with the lessons. Following to my introduction video to the website, the first class we are going to see today is about how do we convert the degree, minute, second type of a representation into a numerical degrees. Putting the degrees and minutes to a numerical degree is one of the very basic building block for creating your own custom tools. There are quite a bit of astrology software available in the market, which does that calculations and conversions at the back end. All the astrological calculations involving a degree, minute, second are basically done on a converted numerical degree system. Understand a little bit about this system of representation. As we all know, a circle consists of 360 degrees. In Indian astrology, we use the ecliptic path that is drawn by Earth as the basis for measuring the placement of planets on the 360-degree circle. The geocentric view is the very core of Indian astrological system. When you see any planet on the ecliptic path, which is based on the geocentric view, the longitudes and latitudes on the ecliptic grid form the basis of Indian astrology. Out of the longitude and latitude, we mainly use the longitude as the measurement for the placement of planets on the 360-degree circle. The latitude part of it is used only on specific occasions like Graha Yuddha. Other than that, most of the astrological calculations are based on the ecliptic longitude. If you take 1 degree, that can be broken down into 60 minutes. If you take 1 minute, that can be further broken into 60 equal parts or 60 seconds. So 1 degree will be equal to 60 minutes, or that is equal to 3600 seconds. This is the basis for conversion of the degree minute second system to the numerical degrees. The zodiac, which consists of 12 rashis. If you divide the 360 degree into 12 equal parts, we will get 30 degrees each for each of the rashi. Similarly, the zodiac consists of 27 nakshatras, which are almost equidistantly placed on the moon's path around Earth. If you equally divide the 360 degree by 27 nakshatras, we will get 13 degrees, 20 minutes, and 0 seconds per nakshatra. This is the 13.33 numerical degree that we normally use in many calculations. One nakshatra consists of 4 padas. If you divide the 13.33 equally into 4 parts, each pada will get 3.33 numerical degrees. This is the very basis for Indian astrological calculations. In the example given below, I have highlighted 3 components of the degree, minute, and seconds. The degree part. The degree part doesn't require any conversion. We will just use the degree when we are converting it into numerical degrees. So that is what is shown here. The second part, which is the minutes, the minute part has to be divided by 60, as we saw in the previous slide. So what I have done here is I'm dividing the 30 by 60 and I'm getting a 0.50 numerical degrees. Similarly, we have 15.75 seconds here, and if we divide the 15.75 by 3600 seconds, then we get 0.0043, which is the numerical degree coming from the second section. When we add all of them up, then we get 270.504375, which is the numerical degree equivalent for 270 degrees, 30 minutes, 15.75 seconds. This is how a degree minute second system of number is converted into a numerical degree. In all the calculations that we are going to use further, so we will be primarily using the numerical degrees. Now, we just saw one calculation. Let us see how to do this conveniently in the MS Excel framework. We are going to see the calculations in Excel here. This Excel workbook. I have taken a screenshot of a particular planetary position, which highlights the position of different planets and lagna on the ecliptic grid. Below is a Rashi chart that represents the actual planetary position for the above mentioned degrees. So those of you who are new to astrology, this is called a South Indian chart. In Indian astrology, we use planets from Sun to Saturn. This includes Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, as well as Saturn. So there are two mathematical points, which is the intersection between Moon's path as well as the ecliptic grid, which we use as Rahu and Ketu in Indian astrology. If you take some of the systems like Parashara system, we have an additional variable, the highly variable component in any chart, which is the Lagna. The Lagna is the particular part of a Rashi that appears on the eastern horizon when a native is born. The entire Parashara system is built on the third dimension, which is the Lagna, and the Lagna is the source of the third dimension called Bhava. But this introduction is good enough for now. Rashis are 12 in Indian astrology. The number 1 is Mesha. So any planet that is sitting in the numbered box 1 is Mesha Rasi. So if you look at here, it has Lagna and Rahu in Mesha Rasi. For this particular time of birth, when somebody was born, so the Lagnam that was racing on the eastern horizon was Mesha Rasi. If you go to the second is Dasa Rishabha Rasi. So in Rishabha Rasi, Mars is placed when we are looking. The third Rashi is Miduna Rashi. Fourth is Kataka Rashi. Fifth is Simha Rasi. Sixth is Kani Rasi, Kanya Rasi. Seventh is Tulam Rashi. Eighth is Vrichchiga Rasi or Scorpio. Ninth is Dhanur Rashi or Sagittarius. The 10th Rashi is Capricorn or Makara Rashi. The 11th is Kumbha Rashi or Aquarius. The 12th Rashi is Meena Rashi or Pisces. So this particular native has in the first Rasi, which is Mesha Rasi, Rahu. In Rishabha Rasi, he has Mars. In Kanya Rasi, he has Chandan. And in Tula Rashi, he has Ketu. If you note here, Rahu and Ketu are always 180-degree apart. And if you proceed further, he has Mercury in Dhanur Rashi. An underscore here indicates that the planet is in retrograde motion. For most of the charts, you will find Rahu and Ketu are always in retrograde or Vakragati. Here in this chart, Buddhan or Mercury is in Vakragati. In Makara Rashi, we have Surya, Sukra, as well as Saturn. On the Meena Rashi, we have Jupiter or Guru. If you go to any Indian Rashi chart, you will find these components. In some of the charts, additionally, you may find a few other calculated points like Mandi, Aruda Lagnam, and things like that. So if you look at here, any chart will have a planetary position mentioned in terms of ecliptic longitude. So this is the data that will be used in any calculations, any astrological calculation for that matter. What I'm going to show you here now is how do we enter this value and convert them into numerical degrees. So why do we need to do it manual entry? The whole purpose of this lesson series is doing these calculations yourself and creating your own tools as you may wish. That's the reason we want to show you how to do it independently in Excel. Let's look at the planets here. So from here we have Lagna, Surya, Chandra, Mangal or Mars, Buddha as Mercury, Jupiter as Guru, Shukra or Venus, Shani or Saturn, Rahu. Normally Ketu will be an 180-degree plus of this. So we normally don't mention Ketu in any of the astronomical data points. So now, if you want to create any consistent workbook that you want to use for repeatedly use, you need to have basic building blocks. So this is your first building block if you want to build any astrological software. So when you type the names for any planets, you need to have a consistent naming convention. So here I'm going to show you a naming convention. Let us try to repeat the same conventions here. We have Lagna, Surya, Chandra. For Shukra, let's say SK. For Mercury, let's use Buddha. For Mars, MA, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. This is consistent with what we have here. Now, if you want to create the data entry, so you need to create, every time you need to either go and type it, the planets here, or you can use something called a pre-filled list for you to make the data entry easy. if you want to create an entry here based off this list, you can create that using something called a data validation. So if you go to data, first you need to select a particular range for which you want to apply the data validation. Select the range in under data. If you go down here under data tools, you will have something called data validation. So this is the place that can help you create a list of entries that you want to generate. So click on the data validation, and then you will get a dialog box, something like this. This dialog box allows you to select a range of cells. From here, under allow, go to list. So this list, you can keep these two options clicked. I will tell you why later. And then you select a range that you want to repeatedly use. Click on here, go down to the list that you have here. So which is nothing but your Lagna to your Ketu. So this list is the one we are going to use repeatedly. If you want to add any additional data points, you can add it below and then you can use it here. Now click on OK. Now let us go and see what is available for us. So if you click in one of the cells and click on the down here, you will find that all the components that you want to use are listed for you. Now let us make a data entry out of that. I'm choosing a different cell and I'm going to enter the value for Surya. What is the value for Surya? Surya has a value of 270, 12, 270 degrees, 12 minutes and 26 seconds. So I'm entering here as Surya, and then here I am entering 270, 12 and 26. You may be surprised, I'm not including any degree symbol or minute symbol or second symbol here. I'm just entering the number here. So you will be surprised how after entering the number, automatically the degrees and minutes and seconds are applied to this number. I'm going to explain this to you next. But for the moment, just understand that you have to use a data validation feature and you have to choose from a fixed list of entries, which will be easy for you to automate later. And you will have to just enter whatever the value you are getting here from the chart that you are going to use in your calculations and use that value. Just enter the only the numerical part of that in under this cell. We are getting into the second component of formatting. If you click on any cell, the cell will have certain properties. A cell can have, you can click on the right, you can right click on any cell, and then if you click on format cells, so you will get a dialog box. So dialog box is a place where you will make additional choices for any of the selections. So if you look here, this cell has a properties related to the number, properties related to the alignment, properties related to the font that is being shown, properties related to the border, properties related to the fill, and properties related to the protection. We will use some of that as we need. But for here now, I want to show you one of the properties that is related to numbers. If you go to custom, you can define your own format for any particular cell. Going by that, if I select any of these cells, if I click on right click and I select format cells, and if you go to the custom, I have chosen a particular format. So this format is something I fed internally manually. So this is the format I'm going to show you here as well. This is the format on the cell that is highlighted with the green cell. So if you look at this format has something called a hash. followed by a 0, followed by double quote, followed by the degree symbol, double quote, then you have two zeros, and then you have a double quote open, double quote end. In between, you have a single quote. Similarly, after the two zeros, you have double quote, and there are two single quotes between a double quote. So normally, any text entry in Excel will be opened with a double quote and basically double bracket on both ends. In between, you have to enter the text value. You can customize your format as you wish. What we learned here is how to apply a degree, minute, and seconds format to any numerical value. You have to understand that when you double click a cell, you can see the underlying value. This value is still a number. Only when it comes to the formatting and how it is shown outside, it is shown as degree, minute, second. Otherwise, it's still a number. We are going to convert this number into a numerical value. You have to understand that the minutes and seconds what we are entered here are still not numerical values. Okay. So far we have seen two things. One is the data validation for entering the planet names. The second one is the custom formatting for entering the degree values, which is the placement of planets. Okay. Now we are going to see the formula for entering and converting the degree, minutes, seconds into numerical degrees. The degree, minutes, seconds consist of three components, and the degree component we multiply as is. When it comes to converting minutes to a degree, we have to multiply that. Either we have to divide that by 60 or we can multiply that by 1 by 60. Similarly, for converting a seconds component to degrees, either we can divide it by 3600 or we can multiply it by 1 by 3600. So these are the multipliers shown here. And the example we saw in our presentation was, I have shown 270 degree, 30 minutes and 15.75 seconds. So if you break them into degree, minutes, seconds, this would be this. Now what I'm going to do here is adding up this after multiplying with the multiplication factor. So in Excel, I have used a formula called sum of product. So the example here, I have taken the degree, minute, second and multiplied them with the multiplication factor. The multiplication factor is fixed using a mixed reference. The degree, minutes values, second values are kept as is as a dynamic reference, so that when I copy this formula down, the same thing. So if you look at here, I have used a sum product between the degree, minute, second and multiplier. So this will give me a converted value of 270.50.4375, which we saw earlier. Right now, we are manually doing the data entry for degree, minute, second. So this is not an efficient process. We have to find a way to make it even more automated. Now let us look at how do we convert the number into degree, minute, second automatically. If you look at the value here, we have entered 5 degree, 50 minutes and 49 seconds. If we divide this number by 10,000, which has 4 zeros, then we will get the quotient part of it, which is 5. And the modulus part or remaining part of it is shown here. So there are two functions that can help us to get the quotient part and the modulus part. I have used the quotient part of it, and I'm going to divide whatever the value I'm having in the cell B16 by 10,000 to get the value of the quotient. The remaining component is shown here. Now, if you want to get the minutes and second component, I have given the data entry as 50.549. So this 549 50 is the minute, 49 is the seconds. So if you divide this number by 100, then we will get the minute component, and then we will get the seconds component as well. Similarly, if you look at this number, it is 49.75. That is the value I am entering here. Please note that I am using a decimal value here, which is getting rounded off to 50 because we have set up a format to round it off to 2 decimals. The last component I have is the seconds. So there is no division required because this is the lowermost value. So if you look at here, we got 5 degree, and then when you go down next, it becomes 50 minutes and 49 seconds. So if you add all of these three or multiply this with the multiplication factor here, we would get the value. What I have done here is creating a combined formula for all of them. So I'm going to explain this formula to you. Now that you are familiar with quotient formula, I'm pretty much using the quotient formula only in the calculation shown here. Most of you who are not very familiar with Excel functions and formulas, it could be looking daunting, but this is very easy. Let me explain how I have done this here. In the cell here, this is the formula containing cell. If you look at here, I have taken two combinations of functions. One is I have used the if function, which I will explain to you. And the second component of is the full calculation, which is a combined formula that we saw in cell D16 to D18 here. So I'm using a quotient value, the first one, just to segregate the degree number. And I'm using the quotient function. And whatever the outcome we get, I am dividing by 60 just to convert that into degree component. Similarly, whatever the component I am getting for the seconds, I am dividing that by 3600 to get the component, numerical component for the second section. So combining these three, we will get one number. That's what we are going to put here. And there is another formula I have written here, which is like if A16 is not equal to 0. So if you look at right now here, so this one has an empty value. It doesn't show which planet for which the value is entered here. Now let us look at the formula here. So if it has a value, this particular cell has a value, let us assume that I am taking the value of sun here. So I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to call this as sun. And then I'm going to call 270, 30, and 15, which is what we used in our example. So this is the one we used in our example. Now let us see how this value has been calculated. If you look at here, since the A16 is not equal to 0, because we have an entry there, it is equal to A16 is equal to sun now. Since it is not empty, this particular formula will be applied. If A16 is empty, it will, this section of the formula if component will be applied. If I remove the sun from here, then you won't find any value. But if you put any value here, then you will get the math formula calculated automatically. I hope this is clear for you now. So we are going to use the same formula, and then I'm just dragging it down full. So we will have the values calculated automatically here. When you build your worksheet, so you have to build this for 9 planets or 10 planets, including Lagna. And then you will use the degree section here, and then you will calculate the numerical degree here. One thing you need to note is that your numerical degree cannot exceed the degree by 1 degree, which means if you're getting a numerical value of 271 for a degree minute second starting with 270, your calculations are wrong. I hope this section helped you understand about setting up a list, standard list, and also setting up a format for data entry, as well as converting the numerical degree from here. So far in this session today, we saw about data validation, custom formatting as the features, and we saw 5 different functions as part of the exercise: sum product, quotient, mod, value, as well as an if function. By combining this, so we have successfully created a formula, single formula that can successfully convert degree minute second into one numerical degrees. In further calculations, we will be using this numerical degree for any operations. Hope this section was very useful for you. Thank you so much for taking time today and watching this session. We hope this session was very useful for you to pick up some basic knowledge about Indian astrology. In the next video, how do we set up a data entry framework for Rashi chart in MS Excel? Also, I will be covering about converting the Narigai system of time measurement to hour and minute system, which is currently being used.